Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. It's coming up to just about 7 o'clock in the morning. It is Thursday the 22nd of January. It's cold, it's wet, it's miserable. We're still in the doldrums of winter, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry, we've got a fantastic show for you today. We will be warming the cockles of your heart and possibly other parts of you that don't need any kind of scenario like that. I'm just checking out my coffee mug there, just turning it around slightly. It's got an interesting message on it for some of you who might be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this morning. William Yarwood's here with us this morning, having just got here, thanks by the grace of God to the train services. William, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mark.
Taxpayers Alliance man, of course, and we've got lots to run through. And the thing that strikes me this morning as extraordinary, right, is listening to the way that the media are getting all their knickers in a twist and all their ducks in a row because Donald Trump did exactly what I said he was going to do, which was to turn up in Davos and announce that he's got some kind of a deal done to deal with what he wants out of Greenland and to make sure that nobody's actually going to go and have World War III. The sound of the noises coming out of the mainstream media this morning are absolutely and utterly laughable because it turns out that Donald Trump didn't want to invade Greenland. Donald Trump didn't want to actually start World War III. Donald Trump didn't wish to take Greenland by force, but what he did want to do was do a deal which was beneficial both to NATO and to the United States of America and indeed to the people of Greenland. There's one version of the story that says if you live in Greenland, you might be in receipt of £1 million from Donald Trump. Every single 56,000 people in Greenland, you can work it out for yourselves, get $1 million. That's quite a lot of money, but it's not much to Donald Trump. It's peanuts, isn't it? So let's get going. Lots and lots of stories to talk about. We've got a great guest list coming up as well. Incredible people. We've got Neil and Christine Hamilton coming on later on for the after show after 9 o'clock. We've got Nigel Evans, the former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons as well. So much to talk about, so many stories to get stuck into. William, very good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. You managed to get here despite the train services, right?
Well, I was told, I get on the SWR train in the morning, and that was one of the first train lines that were nationalised, and I was told they would be working and there'd be no delays, but it turns out, no, about 5-6 minutes delay. And do you know what? 5-6 minutes can almost kill you, mate. It really can.
It really can, absolutely right. Let's kick off with all the stories about Donald Trump on the front pages. The Times has got Trump hails Greenland deal for all NATO nations. Daily Mail, Trump, I've struck a deal for my big, beautiful piece of ice. We've got Trump hails Greenland deal. Trump claims framework of deal agreed. Every single paper basically absolutely chock full of everything that I said would happen.
Yeah, and I think you were right, as you often are, Mike, but it's the way in which Trump does these things, right? He swings around and he says, I want to do this, I want to do this. He'll threaten things, but when it comes down to brass tacks, he's just like, actually, I was just messing around with you. I don't actually mean it. And the interesting thing is that he's even rolled back on the threats regarding tariffs to the UK. And, people like Keir Starmer might, see that as a beneficial win for him, even though it has obviously nothing to do with him, right? Nothing to do with him at all. But yeah, I think that obviously I have my own position on the Greenland stuff. I don't think Trump should have begun to sort of even want Greenland in the first place, but we have to deal with the cards that are on the table as we have them. Right. And this is not even as remotely bad.
But why don't you think he should have Greenland?
Because I think he's wasting a lot of political capital on something. I think also the price of Greenland that he's sort of offering. I think Greenland has access not just to great positions in the Arctic Sea, but also has very strategic amounts of natural resources. And actually the price he wants to give for it, I think, is actually a little bit low. And also I don't think it's massively worth sort of peeving off all the other nations. But what I will say is that obviously, he's not going to enforce them to become part of the United States. He would have to pay them all, which is obviously in direct contradiction to what every single political commentator on the left and the right, Mike, actually in this country was saying, because they were like, oh, he's going to invade. And it's like, guys, calm it down.
I mean, it was never, ever going to have to be that problem, right?
No.
And yet, one sort of day after another, we had this relentless kind of media commentary on the fact that Donald Trump's mad. He's lost the plot. He's finally gone too far. He's going to cause World War III. Greenland is not for sale. All these Scandinavians, Danish people popping up going, we must repel him. We had the ludicrous vision of European sort of armed forces going to stand
what
there.
Armed forces?
One British soldier, I think, was said, wasn't it? And then we had the whole tariff thing, which he's now stepped away from as well. He's not going to put the tariffs on, which again we said would happen. It seems extraordinary that I seem to be the only person in a position of doing a radio show stroke TV show that seems to know and understand the way Donald Trump operates. Because how are they so useless?
Because, Mike, I think you don't have Trump derangement syndrome.
I don't.
Right? You don't have Trump derangement syndrome. Like, you criticised him when you think he's wrong, and you know you've had words about things he's done in the past that you don't agree with. But you can look at things on a case-by-case basis. It's not just like, this man is insane, this man is evil, which I think a lot of the British media and a lot of the British public, mainly because the media's told them to think that way, So, yeah, I think everyone, breathe, calm down. World War III is not coming. And also, in a way, even if there was a forced invasion of Greenland, NATO couldn't do anything about it. Of course they couldn't, because Trump and America have a huge military. As we've seen with the Venezuelan operation, they can do a special operation in like 3 hours. And like you said with the European military, my question is, what European military?
Exactly.
The only reason we have actually some more military spending. And interestingly, at Davos yesterday, the General Secretary of NATO actually sat on stage and praised Donald Trump to say, hey, look, I know you all might not like him, but he's made a step up, meaning that Italy, the United Kingdom, France, other countries which have not spent upwards of 2% of their budget on defence are now doing so, and that's I think a positive thing.
I think it's a very positive thing. By the way, just off to the side, because we like to do lots of other things while we're doing one thing, and we've got a poll going out today. Not particularly because we want Keir Starmer to disappear, but of course we do. We've suggested places where he could go on holiday, and we've got a poll currently running right now on the YouTube chat line. So go there and find it. There are 4 choices, right? Chagos Islands, number 1. Caracas in Venezuela, Hell, which is not actually hell, but it's hell in Poland, which is a very nice part of Poland on the north coast, and also a place in Africa, which I'm told is lovely, called Wanky.
Oh, I see, I like that.
Now, I don't know if anybody's actually... If you've been to Wanky, you can tell me about it, because it might be quite good at the moment. Wanky's actually winning. So it's winning Wanky this morning. And there was 43% of you think you should go there, 34% the Chagos Islands, 11% Caracas, and 12% Hell. We'd all be a lot better off, wouldn't we, if Starmer just took a holiday? He seemed to have been completely rowed over. I mean, you haven't heard Starmer really talking about Greenland in the last 24 hours. According to the Daily Mail, speaking after talks with NATO chief Mark Rutte, the US president said he'd agreed the framework of a future deal regarding the control of the Arctic island. He suspended plans to slap tariffs on Britain and other countries. And of course, markets in the United States rallied. So once again, the markets recognise what he's doing. The markets understand what he's doing. And he's talking about, I've struck a deal for my big, beautiful piece of ice. And what's also interesting is that it's beginning to look like, whatever the end result is, that basically what we'll have is more military bases, US military bases in Greenland itself. Many of which will be sovereign territory. So rather like the British bases in Cyprus, which are actually British sovereign territory, which is interesting because some migrants apparently try and land on the rocks there on the grounds that they've basically landed in Britain and can then get moved straight to a hotel in Hemel Hempstead. It's great. For all the people who are moaning about the kind of the encroachment of the Americans into sovereign land owned by Denmark, it's actually going to happen. And nobody's going to be able to do anything about it.
No, absolutely not. And again, this is the issue I was pointing out earlier. I mean, what Trump represents to some extent is the return of great power politics, and European countries for years have been very reliant on the United States for basically everything. And when the US says, okay, we're not going to support your military funding anymore, and we're also going to do some level of expansionism which is to our benefit, the European countries are sat around scratching their heads going, oh, well, you can't do that. What about international law? What about this? What about that? And appeals to vague sort of values and notions that no one actually really believes in, to be quite honest with you.
Exactly.
But the problem Keir Starmer has, and you mentioned he didn't really talk much about Greenland. He did talk about it at PMQs yesterday, because, of course, Mike, this is my post-PMQs therapy session as well. Yeah, it is indeed. Isn't it?
Funny enough, I missed it yesterday.
Oh, God. You didn't miss much. And he started off by talking about Greenland and said, we want security guarantees, and Greenland belongs to Denmark, and it has a right to a sovereign territory. And then Kemi turned it around and said, all right, what about the Chagos Islands then, mate? And he was like, so it's like, okay, one rule for Greenland, one rule for Chagos.
Isn't he also now trying to make out that anybody who mentions the Chagos Islands is somehow committing an act of national treason because you can't mention the Chagos Islands.
No.
Don't mention it. I mentioned it once, but I think I got away with it. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Let's do some super chats. We've got a few coming in. One from Marco's Magic says, "Big up, Mr. G. We need a UK Trump. Genuinely, how do we get Labour out of office before the next general election? The damage they're doing is really worrying." Yeah, well, I mean, you're absolutely right. One here from BGBG. Mark Carney was a third-string hockey goalie growing up. Couldn't stop anything then and still can't, especially his waking nightmare, Donald Trump. He is useless, isn't he? And Jeff says, "I'd buy the Mike Graham Show coffee mug, 16 ounce, please." Yeah, we are going to try and get some merchandise organised over the course of the next few weeks. It's been such a roller coaster ride for us. It's been amazing. We're only in week 3 of the new Mike Graham Show. We've already had our first MP. Sarah Pocham was on yesterday. I can exclusively reveal to you next week we're going to be speaking to Liz Truss, the former Prime Minister. She's going to be coming in for a bit of a therapy session with us as well. So we're really making strides into what you might call some of the more kind of, important guests, I suppose you would say. But we're also very grateful for all the people that have supported us, including William Yarwood, who's been with us from the very beginning, from before we even actually got into this studio.
Yes, absolutely.
You came and joined us in the Century Club way back at the beginning. So shall we play a little bit of Trump, actually? So we've got Donald Trump talking about the UK and Europe. This was him in Davos yesterday.
Are you willing to fight Macron's proposal and make a mission in Greenland?
I made that very clear.
Why are you disrespecting the UK and Europe?
We have a great relationship with NATO, but NATO has to step up.
You're very disrespectful of Europe and the UK, sir. Why?
No, I'm not. But they have to change their ways, or they're going to.
Why? A trade deal with your allies makes no sense.
Between immigration and energy, if they don't change, bad things will happen to them.
That's Donald Trump wandering about. We couldn't hear that very well, actually, so we'll see if we can fix that particular gremlin. There's always one, isn't there? But lots and lots of great comments coming in. Good morning, Mike. I've been to Wanky many times when I lived in Rhodesia, says Steve. It's a fantastic place, game reserve. Keep up the good work. OK, I'm glad I didn't invite him to Africa. He was surprisingly not welcome here, says Victoria. And then it says the USA defended Greenland, says Tamani, in World War II. Lord Viking says, where's you send Starmer? How about Broadmoor? Well, I mean, there's plenty of suggestions as to where you should send him. Shona in Glasgow says, I've been locked out of X for a week for saying cheese eaters deserve what Pooch said. Is that right? Something wickedly. That's just another super chat. Thank you very much indeed for that. You can, of course, send us a super chat. You'll jump straight to the top of the list and we'll read out everything that you've got. A couple of financial stories for you, which will be whetting your appetite, I'm sure. Front page of the Daily Telegraph. Treasury Mandarin dragged into OBR row. This is Rachel Reeves, leading civil servant, published a letter showing that she's misled the public. This is a bit of a scandal, isn't it?
Yes, it is indeed. And I think it's actually what we talked about when I came to see you when you were in the Century Club.
Yes.
Mike, because this was literally just a few days. I remember after I think it was the Times revealed the OBR forecasting, which showed that Rachel Reeves actually didn't have a £20 billion black hole.
Right.
And on that Friday, I was absolutely seething. I actually did a little video for the Taxpayers Alliance, just a little walk and talk video, sort of complaining about it. And it got a quarter of a million views across basically all platforms, which is amazing, showing that actually people also think that she's told complete farcical lies.
Yes.
And actually the reason she hiked taxes in the budget wasn't to fill a black hole, wasn't to give herself fiscal headroom. It was so she could spend more money on welfare so that she could keep her own Labour backbenchers happy.
Yes.
And the OBR chief at the time, Richard Hughes, of course, resigned, mainly because of the OBR leaking the budget before it came out, which I said at the time, absolutely hilarious. It was great fun. But luckily he did take responsibility for that. But as I've said before to you, Mike, Reeves seems to get away with basically everything and never takes responsibility to anything. And even this front page on the Telegraph, which, I hope will cause her a bit of a headache today, it's not really going to affect her in any way. And that's what annoys me the most. She just seems to get away with whatever she likes.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, she was in Davos this week, of course, talking absolute and utter rubbish about what she was going to do with the economy, talking about how we've got the most stable economy in the world and why people are flocking
on what
to
metric?
Britain. Yeah, one, it's not true. Two, nobody's flocking flocking to Britain to invest money in it because there's no reason to. In fact, if anything, people's money's fleeing out of the country. But the guy in question here is a bloke called James Bowler, the Treasury Permanent Secretary, apparently approved the publication of a letter that showed the Chancellor knew the financial hole was smaller than previously thought. Speaking to the Treasury Select Committee yesterday, 2 members of the OBR's Budget Responsibility Committee said they warned the Treasury that briefings and leaks before the budget had exacerbated uncertainty and may have damaged growth, a revelation that piles further pressure on Ms Reeves. In addition to which, the news came out yesterday that inflation has now risen to 3.4%. And unemployment, more importantly, is still up above 5.1%, which is an awful figure, isn't it?
It's a terrible figure, and to make matters even worse, Mike, there are now 1.5 million, I think 1.45 million people in the country claiming universal credit without any need to work, basically any work requirement. And that's up 36% since December last year. Now, if that doesn't terrify the living hell out of you, not just because of the fact that we're leaving lots of lots of young people, actually, like people my age, you know, on the sofa in their, in their beds, being miserable with mild mental health and anxiety issues, and not encouraging them to go to work. But also, we're not providing with opportunities because Rachel Reeves is taxing everything in your dog, basically meaning that pubs, entry-level jobs are becoming harder to get into, and with small businesses making it harder to hire young people with new employment rights legislation, minimum wage, and the works. But also, the overall cost of the welfare bill now is going to be even higher. I mean, I think by the end of 2030, the overall welfare bill is going to be almost 17 billion pounds more by 2030. Now, how are we going to pay for that? Oh, we'll just hike taxes again. This is why in the last...
This is their answer to everything.
That's answer to everything, because she has no new ideas. All she does is raise taxes, then spend the money, and then borrow more money when she can't basically afford to pay what she wants to pay for. And then she says, oh, we won't raise taxes on working people, and then she goes and does it anyway, and then again gets away with it. And again, that's what gets my goat, Mike. She gets away with it. And Keir Starmer, I think, the reason Keir Starmer hasn't got rid of her is because Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are sort of joined at the hip. They don't massively, they're not unlike how Cameron and Osborne actually liked each other, right? They're not quite like that. They're friendly, but they're not mates. But they're both relying...
Because they're kind of automatons, aren't they? I mean, you look at Keir Starmer, you look at Rachel Reeves. I mean, we're going to play you later if we can fix the sound system on the clips. A very funny clip that's been done up of Rachel Reeves in Davos at a sort of meeting where she's done up as a Dalek. Basically, and it sounds exactly like she would sound. It's very, very strange. But there's a great piece of footage from yesterday, which I don't think we've actually got today, but where she's being taught a lesson in economics by an American part of the American delegation. I think he's one of the energy secretary's aides or something like that, who basically says, this whole headlong rush into net zero madness in Europe is crazy because in Britain, he said, you're going to be relying on electricity without actually any ability to make batteries. He said, so you're going to be a country which is going to have to import all of the electricity that you're going to use, and you're not going to be able to generate any of your own. And he said it's complete madness. Which also causes carbon emissions, because the fact that you're importing things means you've got to use planes, and you've got to use ships and the like, and that causes carbon emissions. I mean, this was the whole crazy thing towards the left-wing opposition to things like Rosebank and other oil fields that we have here in the UK. Was their opinion was obviously, oil's evil and fossil fuels are bad and so on and so forth. But the argument actually from the last Conservative government, to be fair, was like, okay, do you want us to import it and have more carbon emissions then? No, it's actually more carbon efficient to take the oil out of the ground that we have on the North Sea than it is to import it from other countries. The oil and gas that we've got in the North Sea next to the Norwegian oil field, where we buy oil and gas from them, which they take out of the ground under the sea, which we could do.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, it's almost literally like the politics of the madhouse. I don't understand why nobody points this out to them. More on this OBR story. One MP on the committee told The Telegraph that there was a suspicion that the Permanent Secretary shared some of the OBR's concerns about Ms Reeves' team briefings. The MP speculated that Mr Bowler was probably uncomfortable with the way the political team were leaking stuff and undermining the credibility of the budget process. I mean, this whole thing stinks to high heaven, doesn't it?
It stinks to high heaven, and do you know what? Do you know who undermined the budget process? It was the government. It was Rachel Reeves. It was her constantly briefing. I mean, do you remember that miserable speech she gave about how we all have to pay a little bit more, sort of testing the waters for an income tax rise? And then obviously didn't do it because when we all heard that, we all went, no thanks, I already pay a high marginal rate of tax. You can do what actually reads. And
exactly.
also, what am I getting for what I pay for? You know, am I getting, well, in my case, I'm not getting trains at work. You know, I'm not getting this.
Well, you're not.
You know.
I mean, this is the month, of course, where everybody's being told, you know, pay your fair share. You know, it's coming up to January the 31st when everybody has to put in their self-assessment through the tax returns. Money has to be paid to the Treasury. So they will get a massive influx of money from the good people of this country in this particular first month of 2026, and they will waste every single penny of it. They'll waste it on the NHS, which is not working. They will waste it on migrants who are still coming in, a tenth of a dozen. I think at last count, there was 800 had arrived since the beginning of January, as of 2 days ago, all now being put up very nicely in hotels. Thank you very much indeed. They'll waste it on, as you say, the people who aren't working at the moment. The more than 1 million young people, plus all of the other people on various different... I think, am I right in saying that there was a statistic that came out the other day that something like 50% of the population now is on some kind of benefit or other?
Basically.
And it's not just people who are not working, but it's people who are working as well, who are also in receipt of universal credit in some way.
I think the Adam Smith Institute last year did what they call a state dependency index, and they actually calculated about 54% of the country is state dependent in one way or another. And okay, it's not 60%, but you know, it's more than half, Mike, and that should send alarm bells through the sky to absolutely everybody, because guess what? If you get up early in the morning, if you go to work, if you do the right thing, you're the one paying for all of that and also receiving nothing in return. And that's what endlessly gets my go. The social contract in this country is completely broken, especially for young working men like me, who basically wake up in the morning, you know, we go to work, we do our correct thing, you know, we pay our taxes, we don't complain. Well, I mean, I do complain, but that's my job. I do complain, but that's my job.
I mean, sorry, when William says he doesn't complain, I hope you do complain. That's what you're here for. You are literally here to complain about it.
That's what my job. My job is complaining. But people are seeing their tax bills go up, they're seeing their country decline, they're seeing crime rise, they're seeing people being invited and allowed into their country who they never voted for and consented to, and they're seeing them be put in hotels, given welfare. And many young people around the country, not just young people, but people more broadly who actually do the right thing, are thinking, what's the point of living here? What's the point of staying in the country? What's the point of me paying my taxes? Why don't I either just leave or just, you know what, say, oh, I've got anxiety and depression, I'm going to go
I'm just not going to bother going to work. Absolutely right. It's coming up to 7:21, ladies and gentlemen. There's a few clocks for you there. We've got more clocks coming because we're going to put some more on the wall. Also, just one final thing on Rachel Reeves. Again, in the Daily Mail, she's facing a fierce backlash from the hospitality industry because she's basically signalled that pubs will be given rates relief because she didn't realise that they were going to be so much in danger of being put out of business. But she's not giving it to hotels, and she's not giving it to restaurants. So you're kind of going, right, so basically if you're a restaurant now, if you're a restaurant owner, the best thing is to recategorise yourself as a pub, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
And then just go, right, now I'm going to get rates relief because it's not a restaurant, it's actually a pub.
I remember when this announcement came out and the usual sort of sensible suspects came out, like, oh, we're really glad Rachel Reeves has gone back on this decision. And we at the TPA were like, that's not good enough, Rachel. Actually, this is just a sticking plaster, okay? It's not just that, it's not just that business rates should be reduced on pubs. They shouldn't apply to pubs and hospitality at all. I mean, they're completely struggling at the moment. And also, then she hikes alcohol duty. She hikes employers' national insurance, which affects pubs and hospitality industry the most because they have very thin profit margins. And also, you take into account that people can't afford to drink or go out and eat anyway. I mean, you know, where do they expect the money? Where do they expect the money from these pubs to come from? Right? You know, if they're taxing them to death and then taxing people to death, and then people don't go to the pubs and don't go to the hotels and restaurants, actually, these places are going to earn less and less and less, have to pay more and more tax, and then eventually shut down.
Exactly. And that seems to be the main kind of economic forecast plan for the Treasury right now. And Rachel Reeves' only hope in hell of somehow getting to be a successful Chancellor is to basically shut everything down. You know, to try and sort of the race to zero.
Squeeze every last penny.
Every last penny out of everybody before everything just gets shut down. One super chat here from DJ Vix. Morning, Mike. Get Ziggy a toy or a joint of meat. Okay, I mean random. Ziggy is obviously behind my my right shoulder over here, if you can see him in the corner. But yeah, he gets toys on a regular basis, and he doesn't get a joint of meat, but he does occasionally get to gnaw on a lamb bone if we have the old leg of lamb, which is very good. Before anybody complains, by the way, because normally people do. Yes, we know it can be dangerous to give dogs bones. That's why you hold on to it. Mike, please, hoodies and V-necks. I'm your #1 fan, says Cindy Smith. I think she means hoodies and V-necks for the purposes of merchandise. Do like and subscribe, by the way, to our channel. I put out a message yesterday about our Substack as well, and loads of people actually subscribed to the Substack, where, of course, you can watch the show, but also you get all the after shows exclusively before they go out on YouTube. The Phobic Flyer says this: amazing work, Mike. Hard to believe how much you and the team have accomplished in such a short time. The new studio looks incredibly professional. Well, again, it's all down to Pooch, the man who's built everything you can see around me. The man is a man of many talents, I can tell you that. A couple of other stories to talk about. Many of them about Prince Harry this morning, which we'll get to in a minute. But how about this one? And you've got a bit on the front page of the Times there about kids starting primary schools. This kind of feeds on from what we were talking about in terms of people who can't go out to work or can't afford to get a job. 1 in 4 children starting primary school can't use the loo or feed themselves. And in the Times it says many of them don't even know how to use a book.
Yeah, and this depresses me to all hell. Now, technology is obviously a problem here, and I'm not going to disagree with that. However, there's a bigger problem here, which is the parents and family responsibility, right?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I mean, we had technology, but it wasn't like quite the way it is now. But my mum still read to me. I still read myself.
Right.
I was still taught how to do things for myself because you recognise that, okay, he may be 5 or 6, but you know what? Even in a few years' time, he's going to be 20 or 20. And you're going to have to learn these things.
The joy of giving a book to a child and sort of teaching a child about what a book is, and whether it's a picture book, whether it's a book that you colour in, whatever it is. I mean, I can't believe that parents don't do that.
No, because what they'll do is, and I've seen this actually before, and I'm sure you've seen it before on public transport, where a kid's sort of playing up or they're being annoying, and the parent just goes, okay, here's the iPad, play with that, enjoy that. I never had that as a kid, not once. Right, I was told to shut up, basically, if I was causing an issue. I was parented, and told to calm it down. But this is a huge problem, and you know what the response is going to be? More government intervention. Yes. We need the government to intervene. More money for this, more money for that, more government intervention, and also putting more stress on already hard-pressed teachers, who's, by the way, this is not their fault even remotely. This is the fault of, I say actually, partly COVID lockdowns and then indeed parents. Yeah. Like, it is not the job of a teacher to teach a kid how to go to the toilet. It's not the job of a teacher to teach them how to, just even open a book. Sure, maybe help read, I get that. But it's not the job of a teacher to do things that the mother and the father should have been doing with them from a very, very young age. So, and that may sound really harsh, but I actually don't care, Mike.
I don't think it is harsh. I think parents should not be allowed to have children if they're not willing to raise them. And if they don't understand how to raise them, then there's something clearly wrong with them. According to this piece in the Mail, the worst affected areas are the northeast of England, where 36% of school starters are not toilet trained. Respondents said an average of 26% of children in various reception classes this year had frequent toilet mishaps, up from 24% in the previous 2 years. Teachers said frequent toilet interruptions led to stop-start days, 70% of them saying they had an impact on class progress. I just find it extraordinary that, the only thing that we can hear the government talking about is free breakfast clubs. Well, there's not much point in giving breakfast to somebody who's going to wet themselves 5 minutes later, is there? Well,
did you see that video they made about the breakfast clubs a while back? And they interviewed, I'm not sure if they were actors, but they interviewed possibly parents. And it wasn't like, oh, well, I'm really happy this exists as an option, and I'm glad my kid can go and interact. It was, what would you do with an extra half an hour of your day? And they'd be like, oh, I'd probably stay in bed for a little bit longer, or I'd go to the coffee shop. And even one woman was just like, oh, it's really useful because sometimes I forget to feed my kids.
What?
That's neglect.
That really is.
That's neglect.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I forgot. I mean, if you got to feed your dog, you'd be arrested, wouldn't you? You forget to feed your kid. So. Have some more money. Take your kids to school. They'll feed them. Don't worry about that. Absolutely unbelievable stuff. Brit Plays. This one is another super chat. I turned 50 this year. I've never known a government so hell-bent on destroying a nation and its people. Great show. Thank you very much indeed. I think we've managed to fix the video gremlins. So let's have a look at what's been put together. This is Rachel Reeves as a Dalek. See if you can tell the difference.
90% of your critical minerals at the moment come from the US, from China. You need to wean yourself off those. Sure. Yeah. But you won't be able to do that without the help of Canada and Australia and other countries. And so for all of your strengths, we do also need to think how we can preserve some of the things that the US has benefited from in the NATO alliance and the Western alliance.
Chancellor, don't lecture America. You've made Britain more dependent on China than anyone, batteries, solar, wind, all because of your net zero obsession. You're shutting pubs, hammering farmers, strangling your own economy, while America pays over 3% of GDP to defend the West. So before telling us how to run supply chains, try not ruining your own country first.
Exterminate, exterminate. I mean, it's hard to tell the difference sometimes between Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer when you get to the old Dalek impressions. Now, one of the things that we've got since you last were here is this rather fancy-looking gizmo over to my right here,
yes.
which is a sound pad.
Yes,
right?
I've used one before.
These are great. And Pooch has very kindly put on some voice. We also have voice notes now, which we haven't had until this week. Speakpipe.com/voice notes is where you send us a voice note, and you can send them to us during the show. You can send them to them when the show's not on, and we can put them together. And I've got a whole bunch of them here, and I've got one here from Linda Heath. Let's see if this plays.
Morning, Mike and team. Great to see you back doing what you do so well. Regarding all the negative comments, I did it myself initially, I will admit, but I think we've gone past that now. Those that want...
Linda, thank you very much indeed. Let's give another one to Mike from Morley.
Morning, Mike. It's Mike from Morley again. Well done. Thank you for mentioning that we're paying to have the Chagos Islands taken away. By my research, you're the only media outlet that's telling the truth. Everybody else is saying they're free. We're giving them away for free. No, we're not. Please keep emphasising it. Keep up the good work. Fantastic show, and you've achieved so much in such a short time. Unfortunately...
Mike, thank you very much indeed. This one from Something Wickedly, another super chat. Shona in Glasgow. Some adults who crap in the street aren't toilet trained. Imagine their kids. Crikey. Glasgow's changed a bit since I lived there. I mean, you used to see women peeing in the street outside nightclubs. It's not quite making it home.
No.
Yeah, that was a big
I've
thing in
never
Scotland.
seen that.
Yeah, that was in Glasgow and Edinburgh. They would do that. Simon Kilford has just sent us a super chat as well. William Yarwood is here with us. We've got loads more stories to talk about in the papers as well. We've got a few more clips to show you too. Don't forget, Nigel Evans, the Deputy Speaker, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, is going to be coming in later on. Jamie Jenkins on the show as well. And Neil and Christine Hamilton join us for the after show. That's after 9 o'clock this morning. Right now, though, it's time for Edward Hughes with the news.
Good morning. Here is the news for today, the 21st of January. I'm Edward Hughes. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has toughened his stance against US President Trump's pressures over Greenland, declaring Britain will not yield to tariff threats or intimidation, and affirming that Greenland's future belongs to its people and Denmark. This follows Trump's recent deal claims and came amid a fiery PMQ session, with opposition leader Kemi Badenoch also clashing on the issue and UK sovereignty. Surely Starmer could just exterminate them with his Dalek death ray? The House of Lords voted to back a ban on social media for under-16s, putting pressure on the government, though MPs may try to overturn it after a planned consultation. Peers described children's social media addiction as a potential catastrophe. Prince Harry gave emotional testimony in court against the Daily Mail's publisher, describing the traumatic impact of intrusive coverage on him and Meghan, and noting a historic admission in the case settlement. Is anyone else sick to the eye teeth of Harry and Meghan? He's an early contender for Plank of the Year. Other stories include a huge rise in UK adults using ADHD medication over recent years, new guidelines pushing green spaces as standard for all new English housing developments, and ongoing concerns about accessibility for blind people at train stations. Overall, a day dominated by transatlantic tensions, child safety online, and royal/media legal developments. That's your news. Laters, Tigers.
Yeah, that was a bit long, I think, from Edward Hughes. We might have to give him a bit of a spanking and tell him to cut it back a bit because we can't have it going on and on and on and on. We heard him talking about Prince Harry there. We'll have a look at some of the stories on that. Before we do that, though, I've just spotted this one in in the Mail. It's a tiny, tiny little piece and a single column. Britain is facing an obesity crisis, and it seems it's not just humans who are piling on the pounds. Apparently, researchers warned more than half of dogs are overweight, with some owners even feeding their pets ice cream and fish and chips.
What?
I mean, I will admit, I have given Ziggy the occasional bit of fish and chips if I happen to be eating fish and chips, which is not very often. He loves a bit of fried fish, and he loves a chip. Well, he basically loves anything.
Dogs like anything.
We did used to take the kids to a place called Benchbury, which is one of these kind of adventure sort of wilderness type areas down in Sussex, Kent actually. And in the summertime, if we get an ice cream, we'd usually get one for the dog. But I mean, I think he's probably eaten 2 or 3 ice creams in his entire life.
Yeah.
You don't feed dogs, generally speaking, that kind of food, do you?
Not every day, not every week. I mean,
No.
doesn't dog food exist for a reason? I mean, I understand. Like sometimes it's nice to give your dog, a treat, or a steak, or something nice, a bit of ham, something left over.
Bit of cheese.
My grandparents were Irish Wolfhound breeders, so
Right.
I grew up around big dogs. I love dogs to bits.
They're beautiful dogs.
They're beautiful dogs. Are completely thick, by the way. Like they look intimidating, but they're just slobbering like messes. They're completely. They're kind of useless actually as dogs, but they're lovely dogs. But yeah, I've seen how dogs are supposed to be fed properly, but I've also seen them have treats and things like that, and it doesn't harm them. But the point of the matter is, it's not every day, and I have actually never seen my grandmother, bless her, give any of the Irish Wolfhounds any ice cream ever, even though I'm sure they would have absolutely loved it, because Irish Wolfhounds will eat anything, and if you even drop just a tiny thing on the floor, they will lick the floor clean and almost take the laminate off.
Absolutely. For some reason, I'm hearing Edward Hughes in my ear. I don't know why. Shut up, Edward. You're finished now. And also, apparently, you got it wrong on the date. It says here that he said it was the 21st of January. It's actually the 22nd.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. Edward Hughes is haunting me, which is not what
Although,
I want.
Mike, I wouldn't spank Edward Hughes because he'd probably like it.
He probably would, actually, yeah. He probably would. It's a very good point. Prince Harry, I know that you really, 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 really don't like talking about it, but Prince Harry fought back tears yesterday as he told the High Court, the Daily Mail publisher made my wife's life an absolute misery. And she's made his life a bleeding misery as well. Will this guy never stop complaining? He's born into one of the most privileged families in the entire world. He's lived his entire life as a multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
He's been given every privilege that could be given to any individual.
Yeah.
And he's still moaning.
Yeah, and...
Shut up, Harry.
I don't know if you've seen it, but there was a South Park sketch a while ago about Prince Harry and Meghan, and they come on stage saying, we want privacy, and they go in front of all the cameras. And that's actually just my general view on the entire situation. You want to leave the royal family, you want to have privacy, fine.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yes.
But you know what? My problem is then you go out in front of the papers, you go out in front of the TV cameras, and you cause more and more trouble. You say more and more things. You write a book, which, by the way, I think was on half-price discount the next day, almost immediately.
Right.
And now you're whinging about this. And look, if you want the press to stop harassing you, stop talking to them.
Yes.
If you want the media to stop harassing you, stop going on TV. Go and do your own little thing, wherever you live, this is Los Angeles or wherever they live in the United States. Go and do that, that's fine. But don't constantly put your nose into British life if you say you want to get out of British life. It seems like a complete contradiction to me.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know what's going inside of his head. Maybe Harry's not the one pushing this forward. Maybe it's Meghan. I don't entirely know.
I don't know. He seems to be entirely kind of addicted to court cases, doesn't he? I mean, if he's not got one going, he starts up another one. He's only just finished with the Daily Mirror. He's now having a go at the Daily Mail. It was only, a few short months ago that he was in court trying to still overturn this decision about his security, which again is going to come back, I think, into court for another session in the next few weeks. I mean, he seems to be... He's obviously addicted to being in the public eye, even though he keeps saying he doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, which makes, again, that's the whole joke. It's like, we want privacy. It's like, no, you clearly don't.
No. You see him walking into court every day, sort of waving to the assembled hacks, none of whom care whether he waves at them or not. There's no great crowds waiting to see him every day. It's just ludicrous.
No, it is ludicrous. And like I said, if he doesn't want any of this, he should just stop doing it. And actually quite simple. It's actually very, very simple. And the other problem I have with Harry and Meghan discourse is it reminds me of actually how I think there is plenty of blame to put on them, and they never accept that. Because I remember when Harry and Meghan were just getting married, and I remember the wedding, actually. I remember the hype behind it.
Yeah.
Everyone was so in favour of it. Everyone loved the idea. You know, every politician, every person, everyone in the commentariat was like, oh, this is going to be a great wedding. They're going to be a young, hip couple wedding, and they're going to, you know, be a really popular young couple for, you know, the people of Britain.
Yes.
And look what it's all just turned down to. And you know what, Mike? It actually didn't have to turn out like this even remotely.
No, I mean, there was a time when Harry was actually really, really rather well regarded by the people. They saw him as this kind of really quite cool character. You know, he seemed to have a lot of fun in his life, notwithstanding the old uniforms that he occasionally used to wear to fancy dress parties. But, you know, apparently Harry is speaking up for his pal Liz Hurley today, says John. You know, the one that made millions from being on the front pages all the time in the 90s, wearing very little, it seems to be. And Elton John's part of this whole campaign as well, to have a go at the Daily Mail. And I mean, the point is that, you know, one of the overarching suggestions is that he can't understand and he can't get his head around the fact that actually a lot of the information that newspapers were publishing was being given to them by his friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Who were basically selling him out.
Yeah.
You know, because that's the kind of friends you have if you're in the royal family. You know, that's the way it goes.
Which are obviously not nice for him, but then it's not untrue.
Right.
Is it? Okay, maybe some things might be fabricated a little bit to make it a bit more sensationalist. I understand that. But okay, well, you are the company you keep, and that says a lot about you.
Yes. What's this? A pair character? I'm not sure what that one was. I just had a little super chat there from Simon. Pair character lifting some weights, saying keep it up. I don't know what that means. Maybe you could explain further, Simon. Thank you very much indeed for that. A couple of other stories. Harry is insignificant. He doesn't like that. Up peeps, fed up with Haz and Meg, says KM. What secrets does Harry know about the royal family, though, says Blue Van Man. I'm not sure. Harry and baby Beckham, the product of given a prize for being out at musical statues as kids, says Sean. And one here says, I'm seeing Peter in September, says Ruth. I don't know who you mean by that, but it might be Peter Blexley. People keep asking, actually, if Peter Blexley is going to come on the show. We are going to get Peter Blexley on, but he is in the midst, as many of you will know, of a massive tour of the UK, doing his, I think it's Diary of a Murder or something like that. Apparently it's a great show. So we're trying to get him in when he's actually got a little bit of an opening, sometime between now and July. When he's actually in London. Should we play another couple of clips? Because we've got loads of clips today that we can let you see. How about one from PMQs? You were saying you're suffering from your post-PMQ kind of, you know, nightmare scenario. And here's Kemi Badenoch talking about the Chagos Islands.
Mr. Speaker, we'll note that when I asked him what the President told him, he couldn't tell us. Now he expects us to believe he knows what's going on in President Trump's mind. Let me remind him, his Deputy Prime Minister, then Foreign Secretary, used to say that if President Trump didn't like the deal, it wouldn't go ahead. And let's look at what President Trump actually said. The Chagos deal is an act of great stupidity and a sign of total weakness. We didn't need President Trump to tell us that. We've been saying this for 12 months. And let's remind the Prime Minister, President Trump thought that we were doing this, that the Prime Minister is doing this for money. The Prime Minister is giving away territory we own and paying £35 billion for the privilege. Why doesn't he just scrap this terrible deal and put the money into our armed forces?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Why doesn't he scrap this terrible Chagos Islands deal? I mean, when Donald Trump came out earlier in the week and just basically rubbished it, you could see Keir Starmer sort of, you know, I think I described it in the morning, his sort of the tightening of his sphincter as he awoke in Downing Street thinking, crikey, what do I do now? Because he is, the one thing that we've seen over this whole business of Davos, where he didn't go, is that he clearly now does not have any kind of direct connection or line into the White House where he can just call up any time and ask Donald Trump what he's thinking.
No, because Trump doesn't care about him, to be quite honest with you. I mean, over the Venezuela operation, I think it took 24 to 48 hours for Trump to call Starmer. And that was after, you know, Trump had called the French president, other South American leaders and the like. And, you know, where's Keir Starmer? Where's so-called, you know, the United States' greatest ally in all this? We're nowhere. So it sort of defeats the point that a lot of people, I think a lot of high status opinion holding, sensible people like to make about Starmer, which is whatever you might say about his domestic politics, Mike, he's doing really well on the international stage.
I know. I had somebody in here last week saying exactly that, and I was like, are you having a laugh?
Yeah, on what metric is he doing well on the international stage where the President of the United States can't even be bothered to call you?
And also for a guy who spends half of his life travelling around the world on foreign trips, trying to make himself out to be some kind of international statesman, the one place where he should be, which is Davos, where he should be talking to world leaders and talking to the President of the United States of America, he's not there.
No.
So he's not even getting the benefit of a conversation with Donald Trump. And he clearly doesn't know. And by the way, if you talk about people who are out of touch, what about David Lammy sitting there next to him, who looks more and more like a bloke who's literally been parachuted in from a mental hospital to sit next to the Prime Minister and just nod along every time anybody says anything vaguely sort of familiar to him. But he doesn't seem to know anything.
No.
We've got a story in the Telegraph this morning saying that David Lammy is now going to scrap just half of jury trials as opposed to all of them. But I don't know which half he's going to be scrapping. They say half of all jury trials are to be scrapped under David Lammy's plan to tackle the record Crown Court backlogs. Defendants in some 7,500 cases will lose the right to a jury trial and will instead be heard by magistrates or judges sitting alone under the Justice Secretary's plan, which means that basically just 1.5% of all cases will be heard before a jury. I mean, they don't seem to know what they're doing, do they?
No, and I must say, even though I'm from the Taxpayers Alliance, there is one element of our country that does need a little bit more money, and I'd say that's the prison and the justice system, and I think that's a pretty sensible thing to say. And the way you solve the backlog is not by just going, you know what, we're going to cancel jury trials, we're just going to let prisoners out a little bit earlier. No, you put more money into the prison service, you put more money into courts, you give more money to the police, and also then you reform the police to say, okay, here are the things you need to be focusing on, not bureaucracy, not minor petty things such as, people saying mean words on the internet, but actually things that people are affected on day-to-day life, which can actually then stop people being harmed. But Lammy seems to have no interest in that and seems to be going along with this hobby horse of his, which is to ban get rid of only half of jury trials. Well, like you said, what half? And also, what's that going to mean? What's that going to mean?
And how are you going to know if you're up on a charge in court? Because we have to remember that you are supposedly innocent until proven guilty. And so people who are up for trial do deserve to be treated fairly.
Absolutely.
And do deserve to be treated exactly the same as everybody else. But how are you going to know if you're going up before a judge whether you're going to get a jury trial or not?
Exactly.
And if it's not clear, then if you've got a decent lawyer, the lawyer will challenge it, and that'll create even more of a backlog.
Exactly. So it makes sense to have jury trials for everything, because also jury trials can actually save and even solve a case, because there might be a certain kind of judge, or there might be a certain kind of evidence, and you have to. There's so many things at play in a court, and the jury can actually prevent injustice from being done. And to take that away, I think is actually pretty dangerous, Mike. Pretty dangerous indeed.
It really is. And to put anything in the hands of David Lammy, definitely dangerous. I mean, I wouldn't give him a hairdryer. Here's one from Martin who says, Mike, I give my wife a bone on a regular occasion. It hasn't done her any harm yet. Stop that. We're not having that sort of talk. Disgraceful. Also, how about this from Adela, who says, do not feed canines any kind of pig meat. They will turn on each other. Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I've given Ziggy, he loves a bit of mince, so we'll make him some minced pork sometimes, some minced, the only thing he doesn't like, minced chicken. Don't give him chicken. I think he's got an allergy to it. But minced beef, minced turkey, minced pork, not a problem at all. Who told Starmer that Prime Minister's questions meant it was the Prime Minister that asks the questions, says What Conspiracy. Talking of Starmer and his travel plans, right, we've basically got a poll out there today on the YouTube chat, which is where should we send Keir Starmer on holiday? The Chagos Islands, Caracas, Hell, which is in Poland, or Wanky, which is in Africa. So far, 42% say Wanky, 35% say the Chagos Islands. Hell comes in at 15%, and Caracas actually is the least popular destination for Starmer at 8%. Never hear Keir doesn't deserve a holiday. Send him to Scotland to stay in a pensioner's home with no heating, says DJ Vix. I think he does deserve a bit of a what you might call a wake-up call to reality to see what it's actually like. Credit to every guest who's supporting you, Mike. It's good to hear various views, says Billy. Mr. Fish and Chips scrapped the Chagos deal. He's a commie, so why would he actually do anything right? I watched PMQs and he never answered and took it right back to talking about Greenland, says Tony. Yeah, I mean, that's the trouble. That Starmer is so kind of unnimble on his feet. He really doesn't understand how to pivot. If he's asked a question he's not expecting, he doesn't really have an answer. Lammy's expenses last year were £220,000. The taxpayer is funding this imbecile, says Barry Island. I know you guys at Taxpayers Alliance are very hot on this, aren't you?
Yeah, and within that, actually, Mike, was actually he's expensed his tax returns.
Yeah.
He'd expensed his tax returns. He'd paid a tax accountant using taxpayers' cash to do his taxes for him. Right. Let's let that sit in, okay? He needs to pay taxes, and he got a tax accountant, and then he said, I can't really afford this. I'm going to put it on expenses, and then did it on expenses. Like, that is...
These people have no shame, do they?
Appalling. No shame.
They really are unbelievable. I mean, I had a little spat on Twitter with a guy called Oliver Ryan, who's the MP for Burnley.
Yes.
Who was one of those who had to be suspended by the Labour Party for writing horrible WhatsApp notes to that other guy who ended up being kicked out. Who was the junior sort of health minister? Do you remember Andrew Gwynn? I think
yes, Andrew Gwynn, yeah.
So he was in his kind of, network, and he was suspended for a while because he wrote some horrible things about I think it was actually about Diane Abbott.
Right.
He was accused of making racist and misogynist posts. Anyway, he spends something like 230,000 quid on his office in Westminster, right? And he's got all kinds of things like accommodation, travel, allowances for this, that and the other. Then he's got £3,000 miscellaneous expenses, to which I thought to myself, well, if you've categorised everything as accommodation, travel, stationery, blah, whatever, what exactly is miscellaneous? I wondered, you might know the answer to this, is there a sort of a category where you can just claim 3,000 quid miscellaneous expenses without actually having to say what it is?
I don't believe so. Miscellaneous can be a number of things, but that's a lack of transparency in the system, and we at the TPA believe in complete transparency, so we want to know the miscellaneous thing. I mean, you got me onto MP's expenses, so I mean, I love it.
I
have good things.
It's one of my favourite
subjects. One of my favourite subjects as well. The Daily Mail did a piece recently where they found a junior minister had used taxpayers' cash, around £500, £600, to do a podcast studio.
Yes, I saw that story the other day.
A podcast studio,
and I thought to myself, here we are, we've set up a studio. Unfortunately for us, I can't claim it from the taxpayer. Not only do I not claim it from the taxpayer, but I get to give 20% VAT to the government for everything that we've actually bought.
Well, you probably pay for that podcast studio, then, didn't you, mate?
I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it? How about this one from Dan? He says, Mike, what about Emmanuel McHeron? That is brilliant. Actually, we should play the clip, shouldn't we? Because Trump had a bit of a laugh at Emmanuel Macron's expense. We're going to be filming Plank of the Week later on today, and I think Emmanuel Macron's going to end up in it because he turned up in Davos wearing a pair of rather spectacular sort of Wayfarer sunglasses. Check it out.
Emmanuel Macron, I watched him yesterday with those beautiful sunglasses. What the hell happened?
What the hell happened? And I think he broke into a bit of sort of fromblase at one point, Donald Trump as well. But he was clearly mocking Emmanuel Macron. Yeah. And one of the things I was reading was that he's apparently got some kind of eye infection, right?
Yeah, he has.
A bloodshot right eye. And it was seen in one of the pieces that I read about it, that the cause of that particular type of eye injury could be a slap.
Really?
And so the suggestion, of course, is that Mrs. Macron, who's been seen slapping him before on the plane, do you remember?
Yes.
Just before they got off, may have given him another hiding.
Maybe he likes it. Maybe he likes it, but also maybe Macron's just been on a bit of a top. Maybe he's been on a Top Gun binge recently. Maybe he's just like wanted to swan around as Tom Cruise with his aviators on. I mean, I kind of enjoy the hilarity of it, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think it is good fun. But yeah, Macron getting slapped around by his wife. Each man to their own. I say.
Absolutely. Well, there's a bit of a theme developing this morning. Lammy can't even answer correctly simple general knowledge questions on Mastermind, says Swordfish. We've actually got that on a sound pad, which we'll play at some point, not just now, because we're going to do some more voice notes as well. Here's a contender for, Pedant of the Day. This is from Ted Smith. Mike, the newsreel at the bottom going across is difficult to read. The font is too thick, like Lammy. Is it too thick or is it just a bit small? Some people have said it's a bit small. I can see it. Trump, I've struck a big, beautiful deal. Trump claims framework of the deal on Greenland is signed. Treasury Mandarin dragged into OBR row. Inflation hits 3.4% amid a jobs bust, basically. A couple of other stories just to mention before we let you go, William. Oh, look, that's
wow.
That's about as big as it gets, right? That's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
Right? But I mean, on the plus side, you can't actually see what it says on my mug if you do that. So it's very nice. Thank you very much indeed. Pooch has now lost the plot. It's gone bad. Let's play you a couple of more voice notes, shall we? Because we've got one here from Anita in Manchester.
Hi, Mike. Anita from Manchester. Always look forward to your great show in the morning. Please continue with the great work. The home of common sense. Love your show. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Anita there in Manchester. Now let's get Dave Eccles. Check this one out.
Hello there, Mike. Just checking out to see if the voice pack works. Okay, bye.
That's a good one. Yeah, thanks, Dave. Dave, that's the voice note to see if it works. It does. Well done. Once again, if you want to send us a voice note, you know what to do. We will give you the instructions as soon as I see them on the front of the screen there, because I've forgotten what they are. There you go, speakpipe.com, www.speakpipe.com/voice notes. One funny story to finish up with, William, and it's very kind of you to stay for longer than we originally had planned to keep you. Gone nuclear. It's a story on page 17 of The Sun. Nuclear submarine engineers went ballistic and sparked a mass brawl at a boozy Christmas party. I love stories like this, because you like to think of those, like those old Hollywood movies where the bar just erupts and they're all punching each other. Apparently, the contractors who provide support services for Britain's nuclear-armed fleet punched holes through a wall and threw food at staff. They were at the Raffles Social Club in Plymouth Saturday night before Christmas. They all kicked off, fighting each other, throwing food at each other, and then throwing it at the waiter. Three of them were constantly fighting. They threw their buffet on the floor, and when staff went to pick it up, they threw pasties at the staff. The mayhem said to have caused hundreds of pounds worth of damage. Sounds like they're a bit pent up down there.
Yeah, I mean, if I was stuck underwater in a nuclear submarine, I might get a bit mental as well. Yeah, well, it's nice to see our members of the nuclear force having fun. But yeah, I'd say, folks, don't throw stuff at waiters. I mean, they're having a hard time as it is. Don't try and trash up pubs. I mean, look, enjoy pubs while you've got them, folks. I mean, they're going to be shut down in about a year's time, so I wouldn't recommend making a mess of them while you have them.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, one of the front pages this morning, actually, which I think is the Daily Express, says our struggling pubs will face years of tax rises. And this is coming from all manner of sort of shadow ministers. Mel Stride is talking about it, but also people that we know who run pubs in this country are really struggling, you know, because the margins now are getting squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And as we said earlier, it looks as though now the pub business is going to be singled out to be sort of given a bit of help. But hospitality business is, if you're in a restaurant or in a hotel, not the case.
Yeah, and that depresses me as a man who enjoys drink, and also depresses me because you're destroying places where people come together, you're destroying engines of economic growth, and also you're just destroying a large part of Britain's cultural and historical heritage, which is the Great British Pub. But of course, Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer don't care, because I don't know, I doubt they probably enjoy a nice drink. I mean, they might enjoy a nice, Ponzi glass of wine occasionally, but they don't enjoy a pint.
No. Well, they're just not sociable people.
No, they're not.
You remember Keir Starmer? I mean, we actually spoke to him the other day, the pub owner in Bath down at the Raven, who kicked Keir Starmer out during the campaign of 2024. And he was on, and he just said, they're just not normal people. Some of these politicians, they don't feel comfortable. It's one of the great charms of Nigel Farage.
Exactly.
He's very comfortable in a pub. These people are not, because they're basically sort of apparatchiks. They're automatons. They've been special advisors
born
all
in a
their life.
test tube to be a managerial elite somewhere, sort of plugged into a system. Yeah, it is depressing, but also that says something about the incentives in our political system, right? If you want normal people, then, I mean, we're going to have to do some level of system overhaul, because politics does not attract normal people, because they look at it and go, yeah, I'm all right, thanks. Probably because there's all these weirdos and stiffs inside of the system. But, that's the problem with British politics, is we look at it and we look at it as really boring and really dull. And obviously, like I said, that's why Nigel's so interesting and appealing. But yeah, I think that if politicians do want to try and... Because I was saying, if politicians are trying to be normal, when they do try to be normal, they do actually come across as really, really weird and really faking it, showing us that they're rather inauthentic. And you think about, okay, well, why do you want to be in politics? Politics is about people at the end of the day, and you have to interact with them and talk to them and hang out in the places that they are. And if you can't do that, what the hell are you doing in politics?
Exactly right. If you can't actually understand what people like and what people want and how to communicate with ordinary people, you're in the wrong game.
You're in the wrong job.
Absolutely right. Now, coming up in the next hour, we've got so much going on. We've got Jamie Jenkins joining us. He's going to be telling us the latest statistics from the economic departments. Elon Levy is going to be here as well, former spokesperson for the Israeli government. Nigel Evans is coming into the studio. He's, of course, the former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons. And then later on the after show, after 9 o'clock, Neil and Christine Hamilton are going to join us with their take on the big stories of the week. Richard has got a super chat for us. Starmer has all the gravitas of a Poundland shop manager in Staines. I think that's about right. And in fact, he probably wouldn't even be as interesting as the most interesting people working in the pound shop. Absolutely and utterly ridiculous. I've got this from Carol Decker. Says, morning, I can barely hear the voice notes. Oh, we'll try and turn them up a bit. We'll try and do that. I'll tell you what, William, I'm going to say thank you very much indeed. Brilliant to see you. Absolutely fantastic. Soon we'll get you on Plank of the Week, which we're going to film a little bit later on. One story we haven't mentioned is on the front page of the Sun, talking about bringing in Nigella Lawson to join the Great British Bake Off after Prue Leith stepped down as judge. I don't care, do you?
No.
No, thanks very much indeed. Now, have a look at this, because talk about pedant of the day. Yesterday, was it yesterday? Russell Quirk, or was that Tuesday? I can't remember. I think it was Tuesday, wasn't it? Yeah, Russell Quirk came in and he made a bit of a cri de coeur on my behalf, and I just wanted to play it to you in case you missed it, when somebody was talking about what was wrong with the studio. Have a look. I cannot take any criticism about his show. Anyone says anything about it.